Hey everybody, this is Rykard here again, and welcome to another Pokemon Sun and Moon Movesets video. Today's video is going to be all about Toxapex, so let's get started by taking a look at this Pokemon's typing, abilities, and stats. So to start things off, Toxapex is a poison water-type Pokemon that possesses 3 abilities, the first of which being a new ability unique to this Pokemon in Merciless, which is an ability that makes it so that when your opponents are poisoned, all of the attacks that you hit them with will be a critical hit. As for its next ability, it is known as Limber, which makes it so that this Pokemon can never be paralyzed, and then its last ability, the hidden ability, is Regenerator, which makes it so that whenever this Pokemon switches out of battle, it regains health to allow it to last for a long time in battle. As for its stats though, the first thing to note is that this Pokemon does have a fairly low HP stat of only being base 50, however its defensive stats are base 152 physical defense and 142 special defense, essentially making this Pokemon one of the most amazing walls introduced into the new generation, especially when you couple its great defensive stats with its awesome typing that allows it to resist a ton of things and also never be worn down by poison like many other walls, barring, of course, Salazzle is using Toxic against you. But for its attacking stats, this Pokemon has base 63 physical attack and base 53 special attack, meaning that more often than not, it's not going to be doing a ton of damage with attacks, but if you do want to run a Merciless set, you can definitely make use of these attacking stats, while also just having the natural bulk that this Pokemon has because of its ridiculously high defense stats. And the last thing to note is that this Pokemon has a base 35 speed, meaning that it is fairly slow, but again, this Pokemon isn't necessarily meant to outspeed things, it's meant to take hits and basically cripple your opponents and make it very difficult for this Pokemon to be taken down in battle. So with that, let's take a look at the first moveset that I have for you in this video. So for this first moveset, we're going to start by giving Toxapex a calm nature to increase its special defense but lower its physical attack. And for the ability, either going with Merciless or Regenerator, and I'll explain why I'm including Merciless on this in a moment, even though I know most sets are probably going to use Regenerator. As for the EVs though, we're going to put 252 into its HP to max that out, and then run a mixed defensive EV spread of 128 physical defense EVs and 128 special defense EVs to allow this Pokemon to take hits from both the physical and special side equally well. Now I know in the future this EV spread will change to reflect what this Pokemon needs to take hits from, and I'm almost positive that you're going to be wanting to run more physical defense EVs on this guy in the future. But for right now, I'm going to leave it like this until we kind of know more about what's going to happen with what this Pokemon is going to want to take hits from. As for the item though, we're going to go with either Black Sludge to allow this Pokemon to recover a little bit of HP at the end of every turn, or a Rocky Helmet to allow this Pokemon to gain some extra residual damage on its opponents by damaging them every time they hit it with a contact move. And because of this Pokemon having access to Regenerator and Recovery, running a Rocky Helmet on this guy to basically switch in to take U-turns is an amazing way to get some chip damage off on your opponents. As for its main attacking moves though, the first two are pretty much non-negotiable. We're going to use Scald as a main water type attack for that chance to burn your opponents, and Recover as a way to obviously recover your HP to keep you at a healthy range. As for your next two moves though, this is where it's kind of up for some debate and there's a lot of options to go with here. The first could be Venoshock as a way to damage your opponent with a strong poison type move that does increased damage when your opponent is actually poisoned. We could go with Sludge Bomb to give it a way to actually poison its opponents while simultaneously doing damage. We can give it Toxic Spikes to set up hazards that can poison anything that switches into battle. We can give it Toxic to just straight up be able to poison things on its own. Or we can give it Haze as a way to cripple boosting attackers. Now here's where basically running Merciless could potentially be an option because of the fact that there are a lot of Pokemon that like to set up using Calm Mind or Bulk Up or things like that, namely things like Clefable, which was extremely popular in the 6th generation games, especially in the OU tier. And if you're able to basically run a combination of Toxic with Venoshock, you essentially are the #1 counter to any Clefable Calm Mind set that has ever existed, which is very cool. But if you want to go with any of these other options, they are all viable and allow this Pokemon to do various things, and it's really based upon team support what you want to use in this third move slot. As for the fourth move though, again, it's similar options, but we're going to go with either its signature move in Baneful Bunker, which is essentially Protect that will poison your opponents whenever they attack you with a contact move. Or we can go with Toxic Spikes again here if we didn't go with it in the third move slot, Toxic again as well, or Haze, depending on, again, what you want this Pokemon to be able to wall and put a stop to. But overall, this Pokemon has a ton of defensive potential and can allow it to last for an extremely long time in battle, support your team, and basically never die and be a nuisance to your opponents until they have something that they can finally switch in to take it down. As for this next moveset, we're going to focus on making Toxapex more of an offensive attacker, even though that will more or less go against what is probably going to be standard on this Pokemon. But for this set, we're going to start off by giving it an adamant nature to increase its physical attack but lower its special attack, and go with the Merciless ability to make all of the attacks that we use against our poisoned opponents critical hits. As for the EVs, we're going to run a spread of 252 HP EVs, 252 physical attack EVs to max that out, and the remainder 4 EVs into its special defense. And then for the item, going with Black Sludge to allow this Pokemon to recover a little bit of HP at the end of every turn. As for the moves though, the first one is basically going to be designed to poison our opponents. So we're either going to go with Toxic to directly poison them, Toxic Spikes to set up hazards that can poison our opponents, or Baneful Bunker as a way to poison anybody that's going to try to hit you with a contact move. Along with that, we're going to run 2 attacking moves to basically make use of our poisoned opponent that will allow us to deal damage to them and possibly crit them to the point where we can actually take something out from an offensive perspective with Toxapex. So the first option here is going to be Liquidation, which is a new water type attack that's about the same power as Waterfall, but instead of a chance to flinch, it has a chance to lower your opponent's defense by 1 stage, which is crucial for allowing this Pokemon to do increased damage. In addition to this, we're also going to run Poison Jab as your other stab poison type move, which also in itself has a 30% chance to poison your opponent, which could then again lead you to basically hit everything as a critical hit. So these 2 moves in combination with each other actually give you some really good type coverage, which is awesome. But the only thing to keep in mind is that you obviously cannot poison types or steel types. So keep that in mind when using the set. But again, the last move on this set is going to be Recover, because even though we are focusing on this Pokemon's offensive capabilities, it still is going to be a pretty awesome Pokemon to take hits. So Recover is going to be essential for it to basically last for a long time in battle and possibly then make use of its attacking stat. On the other hand, we could also run the same moveset but on the special side. So we're going to run the same ability of Merciless this time, but give it a modest nature to increase its special attack but lower its physical attack, and then run an EV spread of 252 HP EVs and 252 special attack EVs to max both of those out, and then put the remainder 4 EVs into its special defense with the Black Sludge item just like before. As for the moves, again, we're going to go with either Toxic, Toxic Spikes, or Baneful Bunker as a way to poison our opponent, and then go with our first main attack on the set to make use of the Merciless ability, which is going to either be Scald or Surf. Now, Scald might seem like a strange option because we're trying to poison our opponents. However, as I mentioned before, there are plenty of things you cannot poison, and Scald can be great for allowing this Pokemon to just get some extra damage on them through burns and things like that. But if you don't want to risk the chance to burn because your sole purpose is to just Toxic everything, Surf is the stronger option to go with there and doesn't have that chance to burn. As for your next attack, you're going to run Venoshock, which is going to be amazing because not only will it gain the boosted power of damaging an opponent that is already poisoned, but it will also always critically hit with the Merciless ability if they are poisoned. So this was actually a super awesome move to do a ton of damage to anything that doesn't resist this, which is awesome. And then for the last move, again running Recover, because as I mentioned before, this Pokemon is still fairly bulky even though we're running a more offensive spread on it. So you're going to want to have Recover to at least take some hits and allow this Pokemon to still somewhat function as a wall, even though our main goal is to damage our opponents with the Merciless ability and its stab attacks. But anyways, everybody, that is it for this video. So I hope you enjoyed this little exhibition on everyone's favorite new wall introduced in Pokemon Sun and Moon. And as always, stay tuned for more videos. Take care, goodbye, and I will see you all next time.